Alright, dudes. So, we've had an update, finally, for Five Nights at Freddy's and Dead by Daylight. It's been a while, I think. I haven't heard anything. It's been a while since we've heard anything outside of the announcement for it, which, if you guys didn't know, Five Nights at Freddy's was announced for Dead by Daylight a few months back to be coming out next year on the anniversary chapter, which, I mean, is still pretty exciting. I still think the hype would have been better if they teased it, but we actually have some things to talk about when it comes to that. So, Matthew Cote, one of the lead people at Behavior, especially when it comes to licenses, just did an interview with a content creator called Slasher Radio, where they talked about some different things when it came to the FNAF chapter in Dead by Daylight, such as working with Scott, what goes into it, and everything else. And I have a few points to hit on from that I wanted to go over, but link is in the description for the original edited video of that part of the podcast. Also, if you enjoy the video, please subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it. We have a Twitch linked in the description down below. We stream every other day. I have a Discord down there along with my Twitter. Anyway, the big update for FNAF and Dead by Daylight is the fact that it's in the production phase right now. There's not a whole lot that you could talk about when it comes to it because we know when it's coming, right? We know it's coming on the anniversary chapter in summer of 2025, so there's not a whole lot of speculation to be done outside of who the killer is going to be, and they didn't really talk about that much about that here. What we do know is it is currently in the production phase right now. They apparently also went through a lot of hoops to get this chapter. Now, we've all assumed that they've had to jump through loops for many different chapters in Dead by Daylight. It makes a lot of sense when it comes to some of these license holders they're working with. I'd say one of the more difficult ones, in my opinion, from what we've heard in the past, was probably Hellraiser, right? That was a little bit more difficult of a license. Matthew said in this interview that it was pretty difficult to get FNAF, or at least that was the assumption he led us into, saying that they had to pretty much jump through a lot of hoops. There was a lot of things that didn't work out, and a lot of things had to line up right for it to happen. Which leads me to believe, I've talked about it a couple of times recently, that I thought it was a bad idea for Behavior to announce FNAF so early compared to when it was releasing, but that gives me heavy vibes that some of the people in the community are right in saying that maybe Scott and, you know, the other owners of FNAF, maybe they wanted them to reveal it early. So maybe it's not all on Behavior when it comes to that. I also think like a really cool thing from this interview talking about it, you know, obviously they're going to be making money off of this, right? They're going to be making money off of FNAF consumers and everything like that. But I still think it felt genuine when Matthew Cote said that it belonged there. That FNAF, and I think this will mean a lot for the FNAF community because they deal with this, you know, on a constant basis of people like putting down FNAF as a horror property. But Matthew Cote acknowledged it and said it absolutely belongs. It is a horror property. And I agree. I didn't for the longest time, and then I actually exited my closed-minded shell and looked further into it, watched the movie, watched some gameplay for the games. I haven't personally played all of them. I don't really have interest in that type of gameplay, but as far as the story and the world and even the movie, which I really enjoyed, goes, it absolutely belongs in a Horror Hall of Fame type game, type movie, type whatever situation. It is absolutely horror, and it's pretty good horror at that, along with some good world and character building. So I think it's really cool that Matthew acknowledged that for the FNAF fans. And I think this really does show, because Matthew talked a lot about wanting FNAF and Dead by Daylight, how long they've wanted it to be there, it being at the top of every one of their lists that they made for licenses, potential licenses, and on community surveys, it was always one of the most requested. It really does show that they do listen to the community, if not with balance, then with what we want in the game when it comes to content, licenses, stuff like that, which honestly gives me a lot of hope for Candyman and Pennywise. We've wanted those characters, or at least I and a lot of other people have wanted those characters in the game for a while now. It seems like they've been teased a few times and maybe something fell through, like Matthew talked with the FNAF chapter. Apparently it fell through a couple times, or again, that's the assumption he led me into at least. So it gives me hope that Candyman and Pennywise are still definitely on the table, and even some smaller licenses that we requested, like Pumpkinhead and Leprechaun. With having Chucky, I think they could absolutely do Leprechaun now, but Pumpkinhead's one of those like lesser known but cult classic horror characters, and it's been on a couple of lists, and I think it gives me hope for that. And one last cool thing from this interview, in my opinion, is how hands-on we've learned that behavior is with these licenses, right? He talked about sitting down with the Ringu license holders for Sadako, the Ringu chapter, sitting down with them because Sadako never touches anyone to physically harm them. It's always like curse, spell, whatever, based, right? So, like, Dead by Daylight obviously has the mechanic in the game where you have to hit a survivor to do a health state. At least every character has a basic attack where you press M1 and it does a health state for the survivor if you're close enough, obviously, right? But they didn't know what to do with Sadako because she doesn't physically touch anyone, right? So they sat down with the license holders and came up with a lot of creative ideas, pitched them out to the license holders, and it ended up becoming like a canon thing in that universe, which is awesome to me. I think that's cool. I think it's really cool that they are so hands-on with these licenses and with the license holders that they're so hands-on and caring of the license that the license holders like it so much that it becomes a canon part of the universe, right? Like, I think that's really, really cool. I have a lot of problems with Dead by Daylight when it comes to the actual gameplay of the game, but I've always thought that the way that they've handled their licenses in the game and the licenses that they did get, it's fantastic. It's the Horror Hall of Fame. I have nothing bad to say about the licensed chapters we get, or really even the design of them. They're all fantastic. All of my problems come from the gameplay. So I always love, my point is, I always love hearing these interviews with Matthew, you know, whether it's with King and Polly, whether it's with these different guys like Slasher Radio. It's always fantastic listening to these just to see his passion and care for the licenses that they get in the game. I think it's really cool. Being a huge horror fan myself, like growing up on horror movies, maybe I shouldn't have, but I did, and I love it for that fact. You know, Halloween is my all-time favorite horror movie, and they have it in the game, and they did it justice in my opinion. Even if it didn't turn out to be the best killer in the game, being Michael Myers, the way that they actually created the character, it's very faithful to Halloween. So it's just fantastic to me. I love listening to Matthew speak passionately about getting these licenses in the game, and it's very interesting to hear him speak of Scott in this interview, because it sounds like Scott is the very same way when it comes to FNAF. They just care about the product that they're making. They care about the community behind those products when it comes to, you know, these horror characters. I just think it's great. So I'm really excited to have FNAF and Dead by Daylight. It couldn't get here any quicker for me. I'm hoping it's really going to revitalize the game for me when it comes to playing it. I always like keeping up with Dead by Daylight, but I haven't really liked to play it for the past couple of years. But I'm hoping FNAF is going to change that. I'm hoping these other chapters that are potentially coming into the game are going to change that. I would love to hear your thoughts on it in the comments down below, so please let me know. Also, again, I stream every other day. We react to Dead by Daylight videos, fighting game videos, everything else on Twitch. I also multi-stream on YouTube, but the support on Twitch goes a lot further, so I have a link to that in the description down below, along with my Discord and my Twitter. But thanks for watching, dudes. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments down below. I really appreciate you guys, and I'll see you dukes next time. Peace out.